Hey, I'm Amy and welcome back. Today I'm going to check one of Alfred Hitchcock's classic films, The Birds, off the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die list. The Birds is about a rich socialite, Melanie Daniels, who meets a lawyer, Mitch Brenner, at a bird shop. Brenner recognizes Melanie from a court appearance that was the result of a practical joke gone wrong. Before revealing this to her, he first pretends to think she works in the bird shop, asking her about lovebirds. Annoyed, Melanie uses his license plate number to find out who he is. She decides to play a trick back at him by leaving a pair of lovebirds at his apartment, but his neighbor tells him that he is at his family home in Bodega Bay until Monday. She decides to drive up the coast to finish her prank. She talks to the general store owner about the town and finds out more about Mitch's family. He doesn't know Mitch's sister's name, but tells her to go talk to the school teacher, Annie. Melanie takes a boat across the bay to sneak into Mitch's house to leave the birds with a note that they are for Kathy, Mitch's sister. As she is leaving, Mitch spots her and drives around to the dock on the other side of the bay to catch her. Before reaching the dock, a seagull attacks Melanie, leaving a cut on her forehead. Mitch takes her to a diner to patch her up. After he asks why she is in town, Melanie lies, saying Annie's an old friend and she is visiting her. Mitch invites Melanie to dinner, much to the annoyance of his mother, Lydia. Melanie goes back to Annie's to rent a room from her for the night. After dinner, Mitch teases Melanie about her social pages past and gets out of her that she isn't there to see Annie. Back at Annie's, her and Melanie share a drink and talk about the past relationship between Annie and Mitch that ended because of Lydia's attitude towards her. Mitch then calls to invite Melanie to Kathy's birthday party the next day, and right after there's a thump on the front door. The pair open the door to find a dead seagull. While Mitch and Melanie are talking during the birthday party, a flock of seagulls attack the children at the party. The adults get the children back to safety, and Mitch asks Melanie to stay for dinner again when the group is attacked by a flock of birds flying in through the chimney. The next morning, Lydia takes Kathy to school and stops by a neighbor's house. She finds him in his room, dead, with his eyes missing, the window shattered, and dead birds everywhere. She runs out screaming. Melanie offers to bring Kathy home from school so Lydia can rest. Melanie waits outside of the school, but sees a horde of crows gathering on the playground and goes inside to warn Annie, and they quickly and quietly usher the children out of the school. But the crows begin to attack, and it subsides just as quickly. Melanie goes to the diner to call her father about the attacks. The patrons overhear her conversation, but most are skeptical, including an elderly woman who studied birds. She says what Melanie is saying is impossible because birds lack that intelligence. Even though Mitch backs up the story, it is still met with skepticism until another bird attack happens, which results in a large explosion and a woman with small children becoming hysterical and accusing Melanie of causing the attacks. Mitch and Melanie go to retrieve Kathy from Annie's, but find Annie dead in the front yard after the attack. Kathy is safe, explaining that Annie saved her. They go back home and Mitch boards up the house. Suddenly, there is yet another attack and again subsides very quickly. They finally go to sleep, but in the middle of the night, Melanie is woken up by a noise and goes to investigate. She is attacked by birds, and when Mitch saves her, she is badly wounded and in shock. Because of this, Mitch quietly goes outside to bring the car to the front door so they can escape. The front yard and house are covered in all different types of birds, but the four finally escape Bodega Bay. I love how much detail the book goes into the background of this movie. It's not as much detail as some of the other ones I have read, but it still gives a pretty good idea of what was happening on set at the time of filming. The Birds was Hitchcock's third film based on a work by Daphne du Maurier, which I really hope I'm saying right. It is probably his most conventional horror film and the one of his library that is the most open to interpretation. There is really never any explanation given as to why the birds are attacking Bodega Bay. Throughout the filming of The Birds, Hitchcock was reported to have become increasingly sadistic with his work ethic, infamously leading Tippi Hedren to a near-nervous breakdown. Many speculate that the film was intended to be a vague misogynistic allegory, with several women vying for the attention of Mitch Brenner. The last point the book talks about is something that I will kind of talk about a little bit later: the effects. Hitchcock really focused a lot of time and energy on the horror and the effects aspect of this film, using pioneering matte effects along with mechanical and live birds, plus the electronic score mixed with strange sounds that blend ominously with the birds' noises gives a greater tension to the movie. Honestly, this is probably my least favorite Hitchcock movie of all of the ones I have seen. I just never really fully was immersed in it the way I am with all of his other stories. I mean, I love the effects that he put into it, and I love the fact that it is more of a conventional horror movie than a psychological thriller, but I really do enjoy a lot more psychological thrillers that really make you think, and that brings in the horror, which I think is why I didn't like this one as much, even though I appreciate the fact that he genuinely tried to make this more of a horror film than he did with any of his other ones. But it also left me with more questions asked than answered. Like, I love a good ambiguous ending, but the fact that they never say why the birds are attacking just really kind of put me off. And I would have liked at least a little bit more of a conclusion there. They just kind of drive off and that's it. And at the end of it, I was definitely feeling the way Melanie felt after she was attacked by the birds. Just so exhausted and terrified of birds more than I am now, or was before I watched it. But I really, really, really loved the effects in this movie. Even though it's a movie from the 1960s, almost 70s, it still really kind of holds up. It's very, at least compared to effects now, it's still very rudimentary, but in the context, it still really holds up. Like, you can tell when they're on a green screen or there's a mat there, but it still is a really great piece of film. My thoughts were very short for this film, so I'm gonna go straight into the clip. Most would assume that the clip I chose for this week is when the children are being attacked by the crows after they are running out from the school, but I'm actually choosing a clip from a few scenes earlier because it just really shows the horror that this film really brings to such innocent kind of creatures. And that's all I have for the birds. As always, these are just my opinions, but I would love to know yours in the comments down below because I know a lot of people really love this movie and I probably have a very unpopular opinion on it. And if you want to know which films I have seen or just follow my progress in general, there's a link to a Google Doc in the description down below with all the movies I have checked off the list so far, or you can follow along on my blog, themoviechecklist.wordpress.com. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but there's a link in the description as well. And because I just spent an entire month talking about horror movies and Halloween, I need something very light and very funny. So the next movie I will be checking off is the classic Mel Brooks, Gene Wilder, Blazing Saddles. And thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, whoever you are. Let me know who you are in the comments down below and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new because I talk about movies, TV shows, nerdy, fun stuff. It's a blast, so stick around and I'll see you guys later. Bye!